Let's jump right in. So when you have the Copilot license, then it adds a little ribbon to your 365 application. So you're going to have a Copilot ribbon. You can use that across the board, but one of the features that I personally love, I used it today, in fact, is prioritize let's see, today's emails with a to-do list and just see what do I need to work on today. And so it's going to prioritize, and here it is. It's just scanned my email, and it's even including, just for the record, emails that I've already gone through, deleted, like I had some spam messages, but it captures that. I had one, review promotional material from Uber Business. But the very first thing that I have on my agenda today is I got an email from Misty to create a job description for a field service engineer role. And she wants me to work on that. So within this, I can say, okay, and then start creating that. So I'm going to go ahead and work to do that. So within my Word document, I'm going to pull this up and share my screen here and let you see how this works. So within my Word document, again, standard opening, just got my Word open, but I have the Copilot ribbon. So I can go here, or I can come over here, and in my document, when I come to this, then it prompts. I can right click. I'm going to go to the home page, but I can go in here and it should prompt me with a Copilot ribbon. So I've got Copilot open, and now that that is open, when I click onto the document, I get this little widget. The advantage of using this widget versus prompting over here in the window is if you use the widget, then it's going to literally format, draft everything, versus on this side, you get to review the content, determine if you like the formatting, all those kind of things, the messaging content, and copy and paste it over. So for today's demo, I'm going to use the widget just to have it formatted. So this box pops up when you click that, and I'm going to say, help me create a job description for a field service engineer. And so it's going to draft this and put it together. And my responsibility is then, as a hiring manager, I would, go back to this leader and I would say, hey, can you look this over? Does this capture the skills and tasks that you're looking to fill in this role? And Misty's going to say, because she sent me this message, and she's going to say, it's good, but it doesn't quite capture what I'm looking for. Can you add a little bit and make it more specific to Green IS? And I don't know the compensation data for this. Can you help me with that? So I'm going to come in, and if you noticed, it asked me, is this good? Do you want to keep it, trash it, change it? So I'm going to change it, and I'm going to say add compensation details for the Washington, or actually for the Seattle, Washington area, and include information for this role specific to Green IS using can't spell today, greenis.com. And it's going to refine this throughout the document. So it's going to erase it, wipe it, scrub it, put in new information, and now it's making a little bit more specific to Green IS. So it's using content from our website, it's using information from potentially past job openings and postings, and it's inserting that information in. So, and you can see now that it's also included compensation details based on market research for the area. And you see how it's kind of highlighting this weird, blue content. That's given me, it's a draft. So I can say keep it. And now my document, my job description is ready to go. And now I can review this, edit this, send it off to my leader. So I've got a job description. I'm ready to interview, right? So I'm going to get this position posted, and I need to figure out what I want to do next. So if I've got it created, I want to create those. I need to get it out in the social media channels, right? So I could say, I could just scroll down, and I can come to the bottom of the document, and I could say, help me draft 10 interview questions, because we don't want to be in an interview for 10 hours. Help me draft 10 interview questions. Oh my goodness, that will help me identify candidates with skills to match. And I'll say generate. So now, not only do I have a job description, but I can get interview questions for this role. Because again, if I haven't worked on this before, I want to make sure that I ask the right questions to identify the talent. So I could say keep it, and now I have this in, and I could type in responses here. Another thing that I could do is say, help me create 3 social media posts for LinkedIn to advertise, to attract, let's say that, to attract talent for this role. Because I need to get it posted, right? That's the first things we do. We get it a job description. We try to understand, okay, what am I asking to identify the right person? Then I've got to get it posted, get it advertised, and start attracting the talent. So in definitely less than 15 minutes, because we did introductions, we have now produced a job description, interview questions, and 3 social media posts for this new job description that I've never looked at before in my life as a recruiter, which is not true, because I've been in the staffing recruiting business for almost 20 years, and I understand the nuances that you all deal with on a regular basis. And I know that this content was never produced in 15 minutes in my old world. So I'll pause here and just see if there's questions, thoughts, kind of what you're thinking so far.
Well, I guess you said we have to be licensed for Copilot. Is that something we have to contact Green IS for, or?
Yeah, so that is something that we can help you with.
Okay.
So we can definitely walk you through that, because there is a security assessment. Here's one of the big advantages: why Copilot versus any of the other chat bots, robots, different things that you might have online. So the power of Copilot is actually using your native system. So you can actually link this to your applicant tracking system. If you use, LinkedIn, or you use ADP or some system, you could link Copilot to some of those systems so that it can get into the back office data and capture that information, in addition to any templates or various files that you have housed within your OneDrive and SharePoint environment. It's actually the SharePoint environment. So anything you have saved there, it scrubs that, and it can scrub the internet. So it can do that web search just like your favorite robot chats, but it also adds the native proprietary content from your systems. So that's the biggest advantage and difference, and it formats the items for you. A great question.
I have a question.
Okay.
So Copilot as a whole, I've noticed that it can be, is it considered an add-on? So like I noticed that you were in your Outlook, and
Yes.
so like if you're in other areas, is it across the board, or do you go into each one of those and add it as an add-on, or does it just automatically sync with those other programs?
That's a great question. So when you add the Copilot license, and to be really clear for the group to understand, this is something that is less than $360 for an entire year for a license. So you can't hire an administrative assistant for that much. So you definitely can't, or you maybe could, but you wouldn't be passing the laws on wage and hour. But it's a very inexpensive cost per license, and that one license does allow you to have that. Now you do need Microsoft Business Premium, I believe, for Teams, for that added on feature to work within Teams, because it can actually transcribe and AI generate summaries and content for that. Christian, is that?
No, it'll transcribe and summarize without Teams Premium. You just need the regular version of Teams. For chaptering videos in one of our other demos, it would require Teams Premium, but it does do all the AI functions that you want it to, just by adding the Copilot license.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions around Copilot so far?
Well, the license is per person, or does it somehow apply to
Nope.
like the whole
You
team?
could,
Okay.
yeah, you can do it per person. You do not have to
Okay.
do that across your team. That's another really beautiful aspect is maybe just your sales team or maybe just, you as an owner or primary executive in the company, you can have a license to yourself and produce content. So great questions. So we'll continue on our little journey. I've gotten my job description created. I have my interview questions. I now have my social media posts, so I can literally just copy this, get it pasted, get all that information out. Now I've got candidates. I'm ready to do some interviews, but I still need to understand what makes this a good candidate or not. And just for sake of time, I'm going to kind of stay within this document, but I'm going to take out these interview questions because I don't want to skew the data that's within my document, because now I'm going to ask it, create a best and worst response to the interview questions suggested. So again, as a recruiter who's never worked on this type of position before, I may not really know if this person's qualified based on their responses. So I might want to read up and kind of get an idea of what makes this person qualified or not based on these questions. So Copilot is going through and it's given me some possibilities. As a recruiter, I may not know these answers. And as it finishes up, I can copy this. I could create a whole new document. And I'm just going to paste right here. So now I've got this document. Let's say in my role as a recruiter, that I'm also responsible for training my new hiring manager, who's going to have to do these interviews on their own. And so I can give them this document and say, hey, here are some questions that you should ask. And I've even included some, best responses and worst responses for your reference. And so they could go through and kind of understand what this looks like, what this sounds like, as they do that interview. All right. So now we've got our everything created. We're ready to rock and roll. And now I need to do my interview because I've got two candidates that I'm excited about, and I'm looking forward to getting these interviews done. And so what I would do in that scenario is I would pull up, I may do the interview. Do all of you use Teams for your interviews or another platform?
Well, we use Zoom probably more than Teams.
Zoom. Okay. So, and that's okay. I think that if you have Teams, you can still have it recording in the background. Like I think there's a workaround where you might be able to invite your conference room or your person to include it into Teams and wrap it in. Because for this feature that I'm about to show, you would need it transcribed in Teams at least. So I think you can also use your phone for the audio content and record that interview so that you could have it in Teams, but still conduct it via Zoom. Is that correct, Christian?
Yes, but you would definitely want to, if you're using Copilot, you would definitely want to just record in Teams to stay natively in the app.
Absolutely. That makes sense. So good questions, and we'll continue forward. I've got a saved interview. Misty and I, we did one earlier. I transcribed it. And so right here, I've got a Copilot recap. So all that I did, this functionality is I recorded the Teams interview. I had the transcription on, and that's what this content is. So, if you've never seen that feature, the Teams recording, it will literally transcribe even down to who spoke when. So this is saying, this is the key topics discussed in this phone call. Here's some information. Amy asked Misty about her approach to managing tight deadlines, all those kind of things. So that's the transcription. Now I can go in with a prompt with Copilot, and I literally said, please summarize the above interview summary for a hiring manager. And this is what it produced me. So it literally gave me this information. I can come over to PowerPoint and I can open up a new document, go to Copilot, and it's all about the prompting, right? So prompting is really critical. And I could say, make a presentation about a good field service engineer for Green IS. And because again, it's all about the prompt. So I kind of want to show you the differences in how specific you can be and what it will do, what it will produce. So this is going out and it's going to capture information and it's going to put together, okay, what is a field service engineer? So it goes through and it tries to find relevant pictures for what a field service engineer might be, but I didn't really give it a lot of context. I just said, find a field service engineer. Well, that could be someone working, in plumbing and construction, in electrician, role, or it could be an IT, engineer. So what type of engineer am I really looking for? It didn't know that information. So I'm going to scratch and I'm going to change topic, and I'm actually going to just completely start with a new presentation just for the purposes of making it easy. I want you to see the prompt. I said, create a presentation about Misty Sample based on the interview summary notes and the hiring manager summary found in this document. So I'm giving it a link to that document that I just showed you, and I'm telling it to use those interview notes. So now when I push prepare, it's going to go to that document, to that section that I've referenced, and now it's producing content based on that. And it's going to present information. So here it is. So if I'm an executive recruiter and I have a client who they don't want to look at their resume, they don't want to look at all my notes, they just want the, nitty gritty, tell me what it is, tell me about the person. This is a way that you could do this. You could clearly improve this if you make a template and you have kind of a standard where you put their strengths, weaknesses, all the different things. If you're using some sort of a template, then the content you produce is going to be consistent each time. But within this, I'll kind of skip through. So this goes to key topics that we discussed. This is what we talked about. I can go to how she handles troubleshooting technical issues, and this was some of the information that we broke down and discussed. I could go to how did she handle customer dissatisfaction, and this is some of the options and things that she brought up with me in our call. And then action items. So that may be a miss. And again, this is where I always pause and say, AI, this is an excellent way to prepare a first round draft. But AI should not be your end all stop. You never review it and edit kind of document because it doesn't get everything perfect. And we don't really need these action items. That's more of what happened at the end of the interview, not that we're taking action this way. So again, as we kind of go through all this, it summarized the different things. There's customer satisfaction during installation. So it really captures all of the information and summarizes her experience in the summary of the interview. So we'll continue forward, and you could also do this. Another option would be taking resumes. You could take resume files and the content and say, summarize this information into a PowerPoint. Instead of looking at a resume, maybe you make it into slides. I'm sure that none of you have ever had, if you do executive recruiting, you never had a hiring manager who wants it in a really specific format when you send it to them, right? I know how that goes. So you've got all your information, you've identified a great candidate, and you're ready to make an offer. But, it's been a long day, and maybe you don't have an interview template, or you don't even know where to start because perhaps you've never hired someone for this position before. You can, guess what? We can create one. So we can say, prepare an offer letter for the field service engineer role for an employee starting with Green IS. So I'm being really specific with it because I want it to prepare an offer letter that's pretty specific to Green IS. And look at that. So it starts pulling all the information, all the content. It makes it so that I have to make less adjustments because it already has Green IS filled in. I would, I need to go in and add the logo and all those kind of things. But again, if I started this process and I have a routine standard template that I use for every offer letter, I could say using this template, create an offer letter for this person. And it would fill in those details.
Let's say you just wanted to do this in the email. Is that something that you could do also in Outlook, right?
Yep, sure is. So let's do that. So we'll go here, we'll say this, we'll draft with Copilot, and it'll say, help me create an offer letter email to Misty sample for a build. Good news is enter does not actually generate. You do have to either click it or tab to it because you can space down and create content in your message. So here it is. Keep it. So there you go. So it's actually creating the email. We could draft this rather than saying keep it. I could have revised this and said actually draft this more in the format of a formal offer letter. And we could do that. In fact, if you want, we can just try again. That's the beautiful thing again with Copilot. Then we can change it up. Create a formal offer letter. All right, so we'll say that. And we'll say keep it so we can look at it. So now it looks a little bit more like a standard offer letter. And then it has position, start date, salary, benefits, all that detail. We're excited to formally accept. Here's some content where they can respond and when with a deadline. So yeah, you could have a template that you already use, paste that, and you could do the coaching. So coaching by Microsoft Copilot is going to say, now it's going to analyze this email and it's going to look for tone and clarity. Maybe you want to have this more reader sentiment and you want to apply everything that they suggested. So they give you all these suggestions. We're going to apply it. It will change up the whole content of this email. And we're going to say regenerate it. So now it's going to change it based on content that I said. So it shortened it, made it a little bit more condensed. And here we go. So yeah, it is super functional. You do not have to draft everything in a Word document, copy and paste it. You could do it straight directly in Outlook. All right, so we got our offer letter. You can do the same thing with a rejection letter. I can say, create a rejection letter for the candidate not selected, and it will help me do that as well. Maybe you don't have a formal rejection letter for everyone. You could just say, help me create a email template response that you could send through your ATS system. Maybe you go through all your rejected candidates and you use that same template and send that out to them. It can help you do that too. I want to pause here and see, because we've covered some of the topics that we had mentioned in our original posting, but I want to pause here and ask, are there features or functions? Because there are things that work within Excel that we haven't talked through. And then of course, PowerPoint and all the different things we've shown that, but Excel is the one thing we haven't looked at. If y'all are okay with it, I can show you some features with that too.
Well, I mean, I'll maybe go off topic, but I'd be really interested to see how this works just with daily emails.
Oh, yeah. Like
I know it has nothing
responding.
to do with recruiting, but
Absolutely. Except that it does, because guess what? If Copilot's helping you respond to email, now it gives you more time to spend in that recruiting area, right? So it's all about how you look at it. So we could say Misty's response, and I'm going to reply to this. Help me respond to Misty. Guess what? Actually, here's what's a fun fact. I don't actually have to spell her name right. I could say Miss, and it's going to recognize that I really mean Misty, and it formalizes it and fixes it for me. And I could say this. Absolutely, I'd be happy to help. I'll get started creating the draft description. Would you be able to provide any additional details that help me tailor this job? Thanks for bringing this to my attention. I'll keep you posted on the progress. And it can literally do that for every email that you have in your inbox. You can even set up, I believe, some Power Automation functionality to where, like, if you have a let's say you have like a about us or contact us web email, you can have automation set up to where if something hits that it does something with it. So it could store it, move it to a file, respond with this message, and then move it to a new folder that you responded. You can set up all kinds of functionality within the system because Copilot does also work to help produce code for Power Apps such as Power Automate.
I do want to add one thing. So there is a specific Copilot page that does really well. Like we're hitting directly with staffing and recruiting, but Copilot works for any piece of information in any industry. I think the most commonly used one is in Outlook because it is able to summarize really well. We've created a prompt that we've been using. I can give it a little demo here. If I'll share my screen here.
Yeah.
Here, so usually the ones we've been seeing is we've seen Copilot inside of Outlook. We've seen Copilot inside of PowerPoint. And Word.
Word. Mm-hmm.
We still haven't gone through, and there's Copilot in so many. There's the project planner, there's Dynamics. So Copilot is being embedded in more and more Microsoft applications. Now, if you log on to the Office portal, there's now a Copilot page. Now, this stands independently from Outlook, from Word, from SharePoint, from Teams. So it actually pulls from everything that you want it to. So this is just Copilot, where do I start? And so if you say, summarize my emails, not only will it summarize it, but it'll give you links to click on them to respond to them. If you say, summarize my work that I'm working on, and it knows that you're working on a PowerPoint, it'll show you that. So I wrote this using a Microsoft, how Microsoft Copilot works, working with another Microsoft Copilot expert. And I use this every single day to start my day. So Kevin, I think this would be a really good one for you when you talk about productivity and Outlook. And so I put, good morning, Microsoft 365 Copilot. Please provide an overview of my schedule for the day, highlight any urgent emails or messages, and summarize key documents I should review before my meetings. Additionally, remind me of any outstanding tasks for my project work streams that require my attention today. It got really specific with if I'm having meetings today, please catch me up on the documents so it's sharp on my mind. And if I have anything that's due today, please remind me what those items are. And I go ahead and send that through, and it looks at everything that I've touched. So right now it says combing through meetings, emails, documents, and it lays out my schedule for today. So today it is my sales meeting. The second one is leveraging Copilot, the meeting that we're in. Outstanding work streams. It knows that I'm working on a pitch deck for a sales presentation, and then I'm looking for a scope of services specifically inside of that. And then down below, it actually gives me links to different things that I'm working on. So I could just click and go on and work directly in those documents. If I had a lot of emails, I don't have a bunch right now, but like here it says urgent emails. There's a lease question over here. There's an inquiry on the website, and those are urgent. It knows based on who it's from or what kind of work that I do, what is important and what's not important. And I like to put the tags like important and today because like on Amy, your thing where it talked about Uber, that was spam. It wouldn't, if you just mark it as like urgent, important, it won't take that into context. It just says, here's your email box, here's a summary of it. But what we want to do is ask it the questions to say, get rid of the spam for me. Tell me what I really need to focus on today. And that's what's really good. You can use that and paste it in every single day for the different prompts that work for you.
I think too, Christian, show if you can back on the email, like if you hover over these little reference numbers at the end of these, it's actually showing you the specific email. So it links it to these down here. And when you can click on those, it actually will bring up the email in reference, and then you can just read it, or the document, or it literally attaches everything for you.
Exactly. So it pops it right up and you can go through it. And what I also really like about Outlook, like if you miss, especially if you're out sick or on vacation, you get back and you're in this chain email that is like 50 emails long, you can just say, summarize this email for me in 3 bullet points. So you can be very specific of how you want it to present the data. You could even say, present to me in 2 bullet points every email in my inbox. So then you can quickly scan and decide for yourself what's important. So
Yep.
you could even say, like, for sales, I'm very concerned about emails outside of my organization. So I always say, what emails outside of my organization did I get today? What have I not responded to from yesterday? So really understanding what you do on a per day basis. If it's repeatable, Copilot is going to be very beneficial.
So if you've got an applicant tracking system, and forgive me because for security reasons and confidentiality, all those kind of things, I didn't actually download a real applicant tracking system report, but I did just create one with the names of the few of us on the call today. And I made up some bogus information based on an applicant tracking report that I've seen before. So a standard that you might see in an applicant tracking report is it's going to have their name. It might have when they applied. It could have the interview date, if that's tracked throughout your system. And then it may have a decision where they a match, where they qualified or not, kind of thing. And then it might have something like EEO information. You might be tracking if they're, for EEO recommendations, you might be tracking race, sex, and if they're a veteran, kind of thing. So if you're tracking those things, you can ask Copilot to help you analyze this. Like, I don't have to know the formula. I don't have to think about the formula. I can literally just ask the question, what is the average time to interview from application date for candidates? I don't even have to specify that it's candidates. It's going to analyze it, knows to look at this data. So that's one way I can ask the question. And I'm intentionally asking this not in the most intelligent way, because there's another way to prompt this. Our agenda today was to show the best prompts and not so great prompts. So that's one way that I could do it. And it's going to insert a row, and it's going to tell me that was I need it to be in a number, not a date. So it tells me that the average is 12. So 12 days. Because I went from here to here. I had one that hasn't even interviewed, one that took 30 days, kind of thing. So it's giving me an average. But here it starts suggesting, would you like some other items? And I could say, well, sure, I want a formula column. Why not? So now it's going to put together some options specific to average days to interview. And it's going to say, do you want to have this as a column? Sure. Now I've got, for how it calculated this information, I actually can see how many days to interview it took us for these specific candidates. And if I'm a hiring manager or I'm the only hiring person, I may see this and go, oh my goodness, I really need to get on top of these two because I haven't even interviewed this one and this one's over 30 days, and then that might help you. Why did it take us so long? Did it get lost in between, the process or something? I could also say, what percentage of applicants are a veteran, given that we had Veterans Day yesterday? That's often a special tax credit if you hire veterans, and you may get a tax credit. So you could identify what percentage, and we could say insert cell, or so we can say insert cell. So 25% are a veteran. And then what if we said, show a suggestion for a column? Let's see here. It's given us insert column. Sure. That's back to interview status. So there you go. So it's either matched or not matched, recommended, scheduled. Do you see? So it's given us options and recommendations. It's literally analyzing all of the answers. I've interviewed or not. I've rated if they're a match or not. And if I've completed the interview or for scheduled, and it's already told me what is their interview status. I could also say, highlight veterans in red. I didn't tell it where the information was. I just told it to do it. But it knows because it's analyzing my headers, and it recognizes by analyzing this detail that this column, it's the only one that has veteran. If I had multiple, I may have to be more specific and say, look at column G. But in this case, it's a simple spreadsheet, and I can just say anybody that's a veteran, just highlight in red. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to create the rule. That might be an easy way that you're identifying, diversity, equity, inclusion stats. Maybe you're focusing on interviewing veterans first because you're looking to diversify your organization. And if that's the case, you can do this, sort by that, and then highlight them and only call them. You can even tell it to do that for you. Only show me veterans. And it's going to hide the other fields. It's not going to delete them, but it hid them right here.
I think one of the things that I enjoy most about Copilot, not knowing like when we first implemented it, is that you can ask it questions about your industries. I saw that you do the like HOA association stuff. You can say, how do HOA associations leverage Copilot in, it could be specific in Excel, or what kind of Excel documents are important in this type of industry. And then you could even ask it very specific industry questions. What do most HOAs do? Or can you start me with an HOA template? So it can be very powerful if you prompt it with very industry specific questions. So right now, it seems like based on this presentation, because we're really tailoring it to staffing and recruiting, that wow, it does a good job for staffing and recruiting. But that's only because we're prompting it with questions about staffing and recruiting. If
Yeah.
I prompted it about, IT engineers, and like Sam is one of our employees who just started, I can say, create me a training plan for the first 90 days for an employee, like through the staffing and recruiting. It would comb the internet for industries just like us and create a 90-day training plan to onboard this employee. So
We literally did use that. We have used that feature to create drafts, because it's a draft, it's a starting place, and it's at least something to start with.
yeah, so I think it's important just to recognize, like, I don't know exactly how to use Copilot. It's overwhelming. There's so much to do, but you could even just ask it if it was a human assistant and they were very skilled in all the knowledge of the world, ask it very specific industry questions. Or you could even say, I'm not sure how to do this. I was helping someone use Copilot the other day, and it was like they wanted a business plan. And I said, just ask it for this is your industry, write me a business plan. But then I asked Copilot, prompt me, create a wizard and prompt me question by question, so it wasn't overwhelming, so it doesn't give you like the 100 pages. So you could even ask it how you want it to address you, and when it went by question, it just made it much more simple.
How does it respond to voice prompts?
In fact, I could show that. If you have your microphone enabled, you can speak. You can do your transcription. So you could do an interview and just transcribe your notes at the end of this. I think this person is a great match for XYZ company. They're a great executive, presented well, articulated well, seeking X dollars in salary, not looking for benefits, willing to travel. Like you could do that whole summary, transcribing it verbally. It's going to capture that with the recording, and then it's going to summarize it in a written document that you could then put into a PowerPoint or a Word document and send it over to your client and or a candidate.
There's one of the Copilot versions like this of staffing and recruiting that we did that was about marketing, and the whole presentation is done without actually typing anything. And so it starts out with, we transcribe a Teams meeting. You say transcribe this, you can copy it and paste it into Word, say create me a summary, and then we went to PowerPoint, create me a presentation. And even the prompts, there's a little microphone button, you can say please create this file for me. So the transcription of Copilot is like 99.9999% accurate. Even if you misspell, mistype, mispronunciate, it has so much context, just like humans would. Like we understand the context of it. So it's extremely powerful in just using voice prompts.
Yeah. And that's this little feature right here. So if you turn on the microphone, it also recognizes just speech. And it's recognizing that I'm speaking. So it's going to do all the things. So I'll turn it off. But it will capture. And that's to Christian's point, that was one of my favorite things, because as a recruiter, I used to do back to back interviews. It would be nothing, for me to potentially do 5 to 6 interviews in a day. And then I've got to summarize all the information. And then if I didn't take my notes and I'm looking at the resume and I'm like, oh, I remember this person, but I can't remember what they said about XYZ. Well, Copilot doesn't miss that, and it captures it and it summarizes it for me. Any other meeting, a sales meeting, anything that you're doing, it could, again, this is specific to staffing, recruiting, but you can use these features. Many of you may have hybrid roles. If you're, working in other areas, you can have it analyze financial reports. You could have it analyze an RFP. Perhaps if you get job orders through, a request for proposal, and you have a formal link that you get, and then you have, like a 72-page document that you have to digest for responding to it and you've got, 24 hours to do so. Totally real case. You can say, Microsoft, scan this RFP document and highlight and prioritize the responses that I should focus on. And then you could say, offer me a draft response for each of the questions, and it will do all of those things.